previously on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along.
That's why I love to draw, and I wanna create Supa-Saturdays, Supa-Saturdays, Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along.
My goodness. My goodness. I pressed the wrong button. Bear with me. Watch this.
Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along invites you to join MadLad. Jerome Judge Hinds as the Madness Entertainment Group Meg presents Auspicious August, featuring gods, legends, kings, and queens. So, get your pencils, pens, brushes, and stylus at the ready, and join in the tutorial fun. He'll be here every Saturday morning at 1 a.m. EST during the month of August 2026 to entertain you with superhero tutorial fun, art, pop culture, and entertaining chatter. And please feel free to leave comments below, during or after the show. It really helps with the algorithm. Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along Auspicious August.
Yes, you saw that, you heard that. And you have to excuse that terrible beginning, because I'm recording this show. As you're watching this, I'm actually in the UK on holiday. And the last time I recorded the show, it didn't upload. So I'm very nervous here. And you can see from that beginning that I'm not my usual self, which isn't the best normally. So Auspicious August, you saw that, you heard that. And we're going to be drawing a bad guy sat on a chair. He's a regal bad guy. Set the mood, let's get our music going. And we'll be drawing a character today called Rodan. He's from my universe. I can't give you too many spoilers because he appears in SupaCross number 6. And we're currently at number 5. So I'm giving you a little preview of what's going to come in the last issue of the mini-series, SupaCross 1 to 6. Thunderzone Comics, we're up to number 5. We've done a Kickstarter. But what we're going to draw today is the bad guy. It's a bit of a spoiler, you know, because he only comes in number 6. But never mind. Never mind. Secret between friends. And I'm using this opportunity to do something a bit unique, in that quite often in this journey of learning how to draw, there are certain things that you pick up with experience that when you're young, you simply don't know that. And our bad guy, Rodan, will be sat in a chair. And when I was younger, I didn't realize that if a major prop, you should draw the prop first. It's natural to just draw the character first. But what we're going to do is we're going to draw the chair first and at a certain perspective. Now, I want to tilt the perspective to give our guy a little bit of presence. So can you see that? We're going to use that as our guideline, or like our horizon line, if you like. So you can see our guy's going to be tilted. Now, he's going to have one leg outstretched. So we need to draw our chair slightly to the right. And what I want you to do is start with a skeleton. If you're common here at Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along, if you've been grabbing your pencils and stylus, etc., with me, you would have known by now that I like to work with something called skeletons. So here we're sketching the chair. Now this is the seat area. This is one of the arms. And we want the seat area to be slightly above the halfway point. So here's the bottom of the foot, seat area, arm rest. And you can see our tilted axis. And we're going to make this line here, make sure you've got plenty of room to sit in. And it's quite wide. So I'm going to average it about that. Projection, make sure things are symmetrical. And what we're dealing with here is roughly a 1-point perspective. Right, our chair's going to be at a 1-point perspective, but something that I want you to look at is that the perspective is going to be slightly to the right. You'll see what I mean in a moment. Right here on the seat, we're going to curve the seating area. And it's actually it's a bit of forced perspective, you know, what we're doing here. And then the other line for the seat, I'm going to come in here. And bring this over the back of the seat area. Now I'm drawing digitally. I'm using Clip Studio Paint, and I'm drawing digitally. And what's the battle cry here? But if you're drawing traditionally with a pencil, if you're a regular here, what do I always say? I always say, keep those pencils light. Very right, keep those pencils light. So we're just positioning the inside of the armrest here, projecting that across. And keep that a little bit more level, let's say. There, that's better. And sometimes when I'm forcing my perspective, I can get a little bit excited. I can get a little bit too excited sometimes. Behave, boy. Behave yourself. There we are. And now we're going to draw the chair back. Now, depending on how regal or fantastic your character may be, you can really vary the shape of the chair. So I'm going to put a little bit of design in the chair, but we're only doing the skeleton. So I'm not going to go for nothing too elaborate. And there. There you go. I just realized that I used a different view. You can't actually see me. But the question is, do you want to see me? You probably don't, but I do feel a bit guilty doing these streams and you can't actually see me, so to speak. I think it's nice to know who you're talking to. So I'll put myself, can I make myself even smaller? Oh, the image is quite big. That's big enough, right? Yeah, I think that's big enough. You guys can see what I'm doing at home. So the battle cry, I hope you've got your pencils, your stylus, and all that good stuff. Now, if we draw through the object, the back leg would come down here. Now look at the perspective, look at that. So if we carry that through, the back leg is going to be somewhere about here. We bring this down. And the back leg will be somewhere about there. So we've got the fundamentals of our chair. We're going to call that a skeleton, SK. And in the book I recently had published that we launched here on Madness Entertainment Group, you would have seen me do certain things like skeletons are generally in red, but prop skeletons I do in blue. Hence our main skeleton of this chair currently is in blue. And now what we're going to do is we're going to flesh the chair out slightly. We're going to add a bit more detail. So there I am. I'm adding a layer. I'm going to call this FO for flesh out. And I'm going to make this layer. I'm going to color coordinate it to be a darker blue. This is called layer etiquette. You see the layers, my layer colors? I like to keep a nice tight shape. And now look, I haven't locked any layers, so I could draw on the wrong layer. I'm notorious for that. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. So let's get some basic design going to this chair, yeah? So I'm gonna stick. Let me zoom in. I'm gonna stick with our fundamental design of the top part. This part is quite well fleshed out. Right? So we can stick with this. Later, when we come to detail, you're free to make as elaborate a chair as possible. But I'm trying to keep the chair relatively simple because we've only got, well, a maximum of 2 hours to wrap up this exercise. So I don't want to get too excited and draw something that's going to take forever to finish. So here, I'm going to see this as a real piece of skeleton. And I'm going to flesh out this arm area of the chair. There we go. We come down. There's nothing more interesting than a bad guy sat in a chair, looking menacing. He's going to take on the world. Bad guy sat down. Always kind of daunting. And I'm finishing the leg a little bit higher. The design I have in mind is there's a little bit of a chair foot sticking out at the bottom. We'll get to that shortly. Okay, so we've reaffirmed our armrests and the cushion area. Make sure you leave plenty of depth for him or her to sink into. And now with this coming up here, I'm going to raise the cushion line to this point here. And then we give the seat a depth. We can let it poke out slightly. Maybe the cushion protrudes very slightly. And I take a line underneath here. And the chair design is quite infinite, right? Exactly how this chair looks. Bearing in mind that a lot of this chair will be obscured as well, of course, from view, because Rodan will be sat on the chair. And here, I'm going to put in a chair foot. Now, if we look, the back feet are hidden, so we will not see the back legs from here. We drew through the object. Okay, so now we fleshed out our seat. I would say we are good to start to sketch our bad guy. So there's our basic chair. Let's just make sure it's nice and straight. It looks a little bit dodgy here. We'll bring this down. I think I need to drop that slightly. There you see, I'm rotating my canvas there so I get a better feeling to move my pencil. And I never forget the stories I heard about in Walt Disney Studios. Years gone by, artists were not allowed. I don't know if this is true, but I heard that artists were not allowed to rotate their paper. They'd have to do it all perpendicular, face on. Okay, good. So we've got a bit of forced perspective going on there on our chair. So next, SK, skeleton, which in my book, I I always do my anatomy skeletons in red. So I'm changing the color of my pencil, and we're going to start to put in our skeleton. So what, now roll down, it's going to be slumped in the chair, looking carefree, and he's got a weapon in his left hand. He's got some cards, props, and these cards signify a target that he's going to try to assassinate. So we've got one arm raised, forearm. Now I'm looking at my chair and the force perspective. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here and I'm going to drop my arm down slightly because I want Rodan, I want his arm to be a little bit lower. I need to lower the arms on my chair slightly. That's better. Yeah, that's better. Good. This is why we keep our pencil light, so we can make changes, even though I'm working digitally. So we've got Rodan's arm is slightly raised, and here's his shoulder. And could you see I'm kind of like moving the lines a bit to signify anatomy. And here's something that I enjoy doing in the book, is how you can construct hands with a basic shape and a few sticks for fingers. Now Rodan, it's going to have the cards between his fingers, and his little finger is going to protrude in front of the card. So we draw to the object, and we have his hand raised, and we put the prop cards in after. So what's important now, you see the armrest dictates where his arms are going to be. That's why I'm doing the arms first. What you do is you put the parts that you know. The chair can't change shape. So you put the bits of the limbs on the chair that you want. And then if you like, you fill in the rest of the detail. So now his shoulders are going to be here. Of course, you have to check at this point as well that the dimensions of your chair are okay. Because you could say to some degree, we were sketching blind, but that's why you keep your pencils light. You're building up your shapes. You're building up your image, so to speak. So here we are, got his head. And now he's sat on the chair, so his waist is going to be, of course, above the corner of the chair where his buttocks would be. So there's the spine, and this hand is lazily resting on the chair and hanging down. So some brutal foreshortening here, okay? So let's put in that palm again. A nice shape just to designate that. And then getting some swing in those fingers. Now, of course, normally I would draw all of the joints of the fingers. But if you've got the feeling going like that, you can tell where the joints are meant to be. And now looking at his shoulders, that gives us a gauge for the waist, slightly more narrow than the width of the shoulders, so to speak. And to make sure we get the trajectory of the bottom part correct, we put in the underpants. And of course, this area is going to be coming more towards the edge of the seat. So I'm going to end his underpants there. Now he is slouched in the chair. So let me move him up slightly in the chair. he's kind of menacingly slouched in the chair, cooking up evil machinations. So we're going to have one foot in front of us. So I'm going to put the knee here, curve the upper thigh, and we know the foot has to touch the floor, and we've got a certain amount of perspective going already. Remember, from the bottom of the chair? So if this is the line where the chair's feet are, his heel is going to have to hit the floor lower than that line. So I'm going to put his ankle there. And again, just a basic, my favorite, a rounded triangle. We give ourselves a basic shape for foot at the skeleton stage. I call it a rounded triangle. And his foot is now touching the floor in front of the chair. And this knee is outstretched, so it's going to be below this knee over here. So I'm going to position this knee about here, connect up the upper thigh, and then this ankle, this leg is more outstretched, so this ankle has to be a little bit lower. I'm going to say about there. We're sketching, and what must we do? Keep those pencils light. Correct. Now I'm going to get a little bit of anatomy happening. Whoops, sorry, I went the wrong way. There. See, it's nice. You can put some swing in your bones, and that gives you an idea of the kind of shape of the leg at that point. And I've kind of drawn through the object and give myself a rough touchdown area. And I give myself a rough foot shape again. With this foot, let's raise it slightly. And his sole is going to be raised. And we'll look closer at that when we get to our detail. Good. Now, as with always with drawing, you take a step back and you look at your drawing to make sure. I'm wondering if I should put his elbow just slightly more over there and slant this out. Yeah, okay. I'm going to put his elbow a little bit more on the armrest there. Good. And at this stage, what I often like to do as well is decide on the trajectory of the face. So I put my center line in. He's looking directly at the camera. And I'm going to put the eye line slightly looking down so we know his head is down, yeah? Then I'm going to gauge his nose and his mouth. I think his nose could be a bit longer than that. There, I do. Okay, good. Yeah, this is looking okay so far. And what do I always shout here on the show? When you're doing some heavy digital work, you must save. Indeed, many a nightmare have occurred when not saving your work. So next, I'm going to come to a layer called fleshing out. And I make this layer gray. I'm going to change the color of my pencil to black. And here, we're just going to do basic, oh, sorry, I forgot. On the skeleton layer, I also want to do the props of the cards that are in his hand. You can put these on another layer, but I want it to go under the thumb. The cards are going to be slightly sticking up. We drew through the object, so one card is at this angle, and I want another card to go behind the little finger that's going to be crossing over it. There. That's it. See, we put the cards on the hand, we drew to the object, but I want that little finger and that thumb to be in front of the cards later. The other three fingers, middle finger, index finger, and ring finger, will be behind the cards. Okay, let's draw a bit more of a card here. Something that I really didn't know about when I was very young was the idea of drawing through the object. It can make a huge difference. Good. So we got our good foundation going. So now let's start putting in the basic fleshing out. Now, quite often here on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along, I give very, very raw shapes. So here, let's try something a bit different. It's going to be raw shapes again, but we're going to incorporate a little bit of anatomy at the same time. So we're going to be going for like pretty much a bare body, no costume. I want you to just get used to doing some anatomy. You know there are loads of resources out there for you to learn how to do anatomy. But I do think as well, doing something like Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along, you drawing along with me and taking note of certain parts of the anatomy that I might do, I think it's a bit different to just going online and following something blind. So here, at the bottom of the palm, so there's the thumb that I want to come in front of the card. And here, again, just basic shapes. Whoops, sorry. There's that little finger that I want to go in front of the card. Then the back of the hand comes down. And you know, you get that little dimple here. We can reaffirm the cards. See, one's at an angle behind. There we go. And now we're coming up to the shoulder area. And I'm going to bulk this arm up just a little bit more. Let's take this out a bit. Now, Roldan is not huge. He's not huge, but he's still pretty masculine, if you know what I mean. So let me put in the shoulder joint here. And his body, this arm is behind. So we could put in the shoulder. And the lats. And it's the socket here. This arm is coming towards us. So a bit of a raised shoulder. Comes into the lats once again. So then from here, there, that's going to come in. And his chest is kind of sunken in, right? So if this is the waist, we can draw the cylinder for the waist. And he's slouching towards us. Let me just bring that in a bit. So we know the direction of the cylinder. I'm wondering if I should get into my trajectories that we often do here. For any of you who tune in regularly, I'm sure you're getting pretty used to my my methodology, so to speak. So here, brutal foreshortening. There, that elbow, we can't see the elbow. Now we can put in the wrist of this hand, and this cylinder is going to go all the way behind. What I call to be the most difficult part of drawing, which is foreshortening. Most certainly. And if we draw through the object here, if his arm is there, his body is going to come down here. Good. Here's a hand. So we see the thumb. There. Index finger. And for any of you regular viewers out there, you know, I'm always very critical of myself. I have a terrible habit of drawing my index fingers too big as compared to the middle finger, which is of course the largest finger on your hand. Remember, we're drawing through the object. There's no costume yet. We're just going for raw anatomy. Here's his neck. And his head is leaning forward, so hence we can see the neck going into the shoulders. So let's just reaffirm at this point, let's reaffirm some basics of this character. Now this character has long hair. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, now he's quite a scary looking guy. Okay, he's got no eyeballs, just white eyes. So let's drop in the eyes. Basic shape for the nose. And he has a mustache and beard. So we can drop this in. There. And it goes around the chin. Good. We won't put any detail of the face in. Now that we've got the eyes, we can gauge that the hair will be somewhere here. And it's got long hair. He looks a bit like a rocker. And it comes down either side. It comes all the way down his chest. So you see what I did there? I did a marker. I put a mark on the chest where I want the hair to reach. Now I know where I'm going. And the hair tapers. And we know the hair sits on the head. So the hair is going to be outside of the skull. We drew through the object with the skull. We can connect up that hair. And you've got a center parting. So go to the pinnacle of the head. And bring that down. I don't know why. I tend to always draw the left side of my stuff first. And we can vary this a bit. Let's give him, say, for example, one loose strand. And the bulk of the hair comes up. Again, the hair sits on the head. See, when you put that mark there, I call that plotting. You have to pick up the trajectories. We taper this. Good. We got the hair shaping. Now we come to the lower torso. So we can see between his legs is hair, and his thigh comes up. And with a bit of foreshortening, and you can see this is where his leg now goes off of the sofa. So let's put in the cylinder. Remember, joints are always slimmer. So from here, some pretty glorious foreshortening going on. His costume actually is quite complex. All right, when we get to that later, you're going to see he doesn't have the easiest costume in the world to draw. Now look at the angle of this ankle here. Remember, I have to make another soundbite, but keep your joints slender. That could be another one, I think, I could use. So now we get into the lower leg. And you notice that I often break away and do my joints and then go away and do the middle of whatever it is I'm drawing last. Because as I said before, it's like plotting. If you know where you're going, you got more chance of getting it right. So now here, let's get into a bit more specifics with the foot now, yeah? So the shoe is going to come down and it's got a raised sole. So from there, you can see that. And we're going to be able to see the underside of the foot there. There. That gives us a good basic shape. We got no real instep or anything yet, just a basic shape of the foot. Now here's where it gets brutal, right? So we've got one leg coming over here, between the legs, so the other thigh is going to start here, and look at the degree of foreshortening going on here. This knee, if we make sure our knee is about the same size, this knee here is going to be about something like this. That's going to help us to get our foreshortening right on track. Now I've kind of drawn through the object there. There, good. And from here, let's take the trajectory from below the knee. And then here, we can just, we're going to take this as we're looking up at the ankle, still. Now we can flesh out. So never forget that calf muscle. It joins the lower foot. Then the outer foot comes out. Joins up there. And I'm going to put an oval for the shape of the foot here. And again, raised sole, we can see the sole of the foot and the heel. You see the heel touching down the back of the foot there. Let's give it a bit more front. So raise that foot slightly a bit more. Good. On the last Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along, I had my student with me, Olivia, when we were drawing Galactus last week. And that was great fun. Olivia has been with our art classes. I'm the president of the Association of Comic Artists Singapore. And we started some art classes back in about, I think it was 2009. Just simple weekly classes. And she joined us when she must have been about 11 or 12. And she actually graduated from Polytechnic last week. And she still comes for our lessons. She's a very hardworking young lady. And it was great having her on the show. Galactus isn't the easiest person in the world to draw. But Olivia knocked it out the park. You did a great job. Okay, good. So we got our basic fleshing out going on. So let's have a look at our guy. So you can see we got our kingpin-like guy. He's looking pretty authoritative, slouched in the chair like that, like he doesn't give a care in the world. He can beat anyone or anything. So as we've been doing in this, as we've been exploring, if you like, in this series, that very tough, very regal people often have collars, capes, large authoritative clothing that makes them seem all the more tougher. So we're now going to get into the costume of Rodan. But first things first.
Save!
Save! Right? And I'm going to take this opportunity to have a slight break. If you've been keeping up with me, that was quite an intense beginning. So I'm going to run the trailer for my book that was released on Independence Day, available at Amazon.com. So let's have a look at the trailer. And I see you back here for putting in the detail to Rodan. Let's check out this trailer.
Paying tribute and great homage to the United States of America on its esteemed 250th birthday comes How to Draw Characters from the Thunder Zone Activity Book, a 188-page activity book that launches on July 4th, 2026. Written and illustrated by Jerome Judge Hinds, President of the Association of Comic Artists Singapore. comes the ultimate tribute to the birthplace that brought to the world the splendor of superheroes and comic books. Jerome is a creator and senior editor at USA-based Thunderzone Comics, and in the book, he shares with you the knowledge and methodologies of his work from over the past 8 years, all neatly wrapped up in a 10-chapter step-by-step tutorial. He covers full-length character construction, studies in hands and feet, secrets in foreshortening with props and weapons wielding, plus penciling techniques, inking, digital coloring, and even comic book cover layouts. It's all here and available in both soft or hardcover. And if you really can't wait to get your hands on the physical thing, there's always the digital guidebook edition available for pre-order now. How to Draw Characters from the Thunderzone Activity Book, with Jerome Judge Hinds launching Independence Day 2026. Exclusively available from Amazon.com and launched streaming live only on Madness Entertainment Group.
Yes, it was great fun making that book. And a lot of what we're doing here, you probably noticed from the trailer, pretty much a very similar kind of methodology. Yeah, good stuff. So now we're coming to what I call detail, DT. We're going to actually put fundamental costume on Rodin. So how are we doing for time? Oh, 40 minutes gone. We should be more than okay here. Now, I mentioned already that his costume is not the easiest. So I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to knock back my background a bit so we can focus on his costume. So, okay, let's start with something difficult. Let me start with his shoes. Let's start with his shoes, shall we? Let's zoom in, make sure I'm on the right layer. We don't want any nasty accidents going on. So here we are. Now, remember, we're looking at the bottom of his foot. So first of all, I'm going to give him a sole of his shoe. So we thicken this, and it's got a bit of an instep, of course. So we're going to come in and then come out and just raise the heel slightly. Yeah. Now, again, if you're a regular here, you've heard me mention something about the importance of finding the center of an object. Now, I'm not going into our center lines here, but the center of this foot is somewhere like there. You see from the roundedness, yeah? So you've got to bear that in mind. So he's got a pattern that comes down the middle of his foot. So, okay, if his knee is here, what you do is you sketch the basic pattern for us. There's a line that comes down the center of the foot. And as I said, I haven't drawn a center line to keep us on track. Maybe I should have done that. Right, this is either side. Oh, you know what? CL, center line. Let's do our center lines. In the book, center lines are always in light blue. Right, so I'm saying, what the? Okay, I'm saying, let me change the color of my layer. Right, I believe this to be the center of his foot. There. And over here. This is the center of his foot, of his lower leg, coming down. We can just about see the top of his leg. Now here's a very interesting one. Here's his chest. His spine is almost there, but the center of his body is just a little bit different. And this part slouches forward. center of the body over here. Sorry. That's more correct. Because his body, we're not exactly 90 degrees onto him. His head is slightly averted towards us. The center of this arm is there. Center of that bicep is there. Let's have a look at this one. The center of this foot is somewhere around here. Good. Then we've got the knee and it goes over. Sorry. Color layer. And then we've got the foot coming down. There's the center here and there. Good. Now we got that. It's going to be easy to plot our costume. Center line, DT, detail. So I'm also going to beef up our guy a bit as we come to do the costume now. So I'm taking a little bit of the outer calf muscle out there. Yeah, and this pattern stops on his knee. And it's a series of divisions. Now again, right? I'm not going to be lazy. I'm not going to be lazy. I'm going to do the contours. Contours keep us on track with our projections, right? And in the book, they're always done in orange, right? So we know, I normally put 3 contours per limb. There, there. So you want things to follow this kind of trajectory as you draw. Yep. Here for this leg. This is the shape. And the last thing in the book that I always do to help you all as you do the exercises is something called DM, dimensions. And in the book, they're always in purple. Now this leg is tilted backwards, so we're looking up at it. So the contours travel in that direction. Now here, I'm going to divert from contours and I'm going to go to DM, dimensions, the purple I just mentioned. And I'll show you why I'm doing that. So what's always useful is finding the side of an object. So I'm going to say that the side of his leg starts from somewhere like this. Now, of course, this doesn't have to be exactly correct, but it will reaffirm your contours. Which you may have done prior or you're in the business of doing. I'm going to say the underside between his legs starts there. And the side of this leg, that's some brutal foreshortening, right? It's raised up there. And the side of his lower leg is somewhere like here. And the side of his foot, whoops, a bit further over, you could say is there. And when we get to his torso, his neck is by his collarbone, which is like the top. You could say it's the top of the body. And we can see under his armpit there. So that's the side of his body there. Now, look at that distance is different to that. See that? I'm going to say that what you've got to be careful of is there's a twist in the body. We can see a lot of the side here, but coming down here, it's a little bit different. And over here, we can very slightly see the other side of the body. Well, that tells us that our center line is probably not exactly where it should be. And I agree, because look at that. The center of this body should actually be there. That's the beauty of construction. Sometimes doing something else can lead you to the correct conclusion somewhere else. It's almost like the science of something. Trust the science. Be a Fauci. Trust the science. And here, this is approximately the side of the arm. And arms are very tricky, you know, because I always go back to Spider-Man's costume. Right, the way how it wraps around his arms really shows you the difficulty in how arms really can rotate and twist. So if we come back to the body now, we're going to put contours in for that. And we know that the highest part will be at the center. And these will help you if you've got any kind of costume that wraps around the body. You want to make sure you're true to this. And speak of the devil, Spider-Man, his webbing really needs to follow trajectories and contours. And of course here, this one is brutal. This foreshortening, very cylindrical, right? It's wrapping around. Here, this arm is coming towards us. Here we go. And if you're drawing along at home, by all means, put in all of this construction. As you saw just now, it can actually help you work out mistakes you might have had elsewhere on your drawing. So now we've got that. Let's go to our costume, and it will help us keep things like this detail on the boots, because it has these sections that run all the way down. Actually, I made my sections I think my sections are a bit small. If I make them too small, I'm going to get overexcited and end up taking ages to finish. And I've got maximum of 2 hours to finish this. And don't worry about inking or shading. The purpose of this week's stream mainly is to get you used to drawing someone in a chair. Right, and that comes down the front. So let's put in our divisions again, and I'm not going to make them so small this time. I'm going to open them up a bit. There, and they go down the boot. See, our trajectories here help us with that. And it's a big one that comes over on the front here. And you've got another set running down the side of his boot here. And make sure these follow those contours. And build up the sole a bit. And let's beef up that calf muscle, man. Yeah, baby. Now, I mentioned that part of his costume is a little bit complex, right? And what it is, he's got a taper on his inner thigh. Then it comes up. It's quite low to the knee, actually. Oh, there. And it comes in, and then tapered boot comes out, and it goes up the back of the leg. Roldan, he's the master of disaster. His group is called Roldan and the Masters of Disaster. And in fact, I can't take credit for that name. There was a boxer, I think his name was, no, I can't remember, it's Donnie something. And he fought Mike Tyson. And his nickname was the Master of Disaster. But the commentator was not overly impressed with his track record. And he commented, but looking at his recent record, we're not sure if it's disaster given or disaster suffered. I thought it was an absolutely fantastic piece of commentary. But since that day, I always thought the Master of Disaster was a pretty good name. Okay, now our friend, he has got almost like a metal underpants outside. Yeah, man, I'm old school. Yeah. Pants outside. Rules, man. So now we come to the other side. And the boot comes down. It goes up. And again, that foreshortening, yeah. It's going to really give us a trajectory on that boot. Now we've got the pattern on this side. It goes up to the knee, yeah. And again, we put the tram lines in. We've got a center line. And that's how that helps with drawing something like this in a costume. And we're going to come down here. Again, that pattern is now also going to go off the edge. And you should try and keep these equal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got 9 integers. So I'm going to divide them up into 3 and then 3 again. I'm not so fussy is that I insist on things being definitely accurate with the amount of sections that would be here. Though it doesn't harm to be accurate, right? Just I don't think the average reader particularly looks at that. And you can see the ones that I've got on the other side are slightly thicker. So I'm going to open it up over this side slightly. Yeah, good. There, make sure they follow our contours. See, that's how the contours that we just sketched not long ago can really help keep you on track with things like this. And these ones actually go off and we broaden the foot. Then we've got the sole. So we drop in the sole. Slight heel. And maybe he's got a set running down the inside of his foot as well. It's a bit higher than that. Got a big one at the front. Flatten that bit out. Flatten that bit there. Good. And of course, the one running down the side of the foot, it's going to be quite, again, quite severely foreshortened. So the divisions will be very close together. Now I've actually got them as high as the heel on the other side, so I've got to make them higher, a bit higher there. That's more true to the other side. Good. Join up the lower leg. Now the outer leg. Again, I'm going to beef up those calf muscles just very slightly. Same thing here. And his boots have a pattern actually. Now I must confess, the patterns on Rodan have been slightly lifted from Doctor Strange. You notice that Doctor Strange has, in the comic, he has an elaborate pattern on the collar of his cape. I'm not sure if it's in the movie, but I've always liked that pattern. I always thought it was very good. Now, let's put in a bit of anatomy on Rodan. Right, so let's put in his chest muscles. The center of the body is there. So I'm going to guess that they're about here. There. Chest muscle come down here. It is bicep sticking out. I'll thicken up this bicep slightly. So let's just get in these abs. The reason for that is that his costume, I gauge a lot of it by where certain muscles fall. It's always nice to know where basic bits for anatomy are. Like he's got this plate that goes up and it goes over his top stomach muscles. Yeah, good. That's good. Now, of course, here on the Madness Entertainment Group, I'm also involved in another show, and that's called Madness Art Attack. And we had some great fun on there last week. So I showed you what happened last week on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. So as we continue with this costume, let's just take a couple of minutes break and I'll show you a brief recap of what happened on the last episode of Madness Art Attack.
Previously on Madness Art Attack.
Madness on attack. Madness on attack. Madness on attack. Madness on attack.
Yep, regularly there. I'm joined by Raul and Q Continuum. And Q is doing an epic pinup of huge, massive Marvel universe. And he paints and renders that. He's been doing that regularly every week. And he did another update this week, but I didn't get a copy of it before making the recap. But from what you saw there, that gives you a good idea of the kind of stuff that Q is working on. And Raul, the one image per episode master, that big powerful image that he drew. Oh, I'm not sure who the character was, but it was very good. And I drew the Punisher because I went to watch the Spider-Man movie twice in the last 2 weeks. And not to give any spoilers, but as you know, the Punisher's in that movie. And I didn't know that I was going to enjoy it that much, but the fight scenes, up until watching that movie, still not exactly decided yet. But to me, the best fight scene I'd ever seen in a movie, for me, was Deadpool. Was Deadpool #2 when he was with Cable. Some of those fight scenes were absolutely ridiculous. Really off the scale, man. But there's some fight scenes in Spider-Man that I think could be a decent match. Right, now our friend, as we came back, we were following, we added some armbands on his biceps. Good. And he's got a gauntlet that goes up the back of the elbow. It's not the easiest to draw. It's big and it's metal. So it's going to sit outside the fleshing out that we've established. And you know those things on the boots, those divisions? He's got them on the inside of his glove. So, hang on. It's going to come up here. And then these divisions, very foreshortened, are inside. Good stuff. Good stuff. Got to thicken up in here. Yeah. Do your fleshing out properly, boy. There. Foreshortening. Absolutely brutal. Good. And just put a bit more shape into those fingers now. I remember when you're young, right, and you come to draw hands, it's such a nightmare. Oh, there. So good. Our man is taking shape. So he actually has a cape. Now you saw we drew an amulet on his chest, and his cape comes over and hooks on to the amulet. So it falls behind his hair. So the cape is going to sit on the shoulders and go behind. Actually, I'm going to make it a bit more regal. Make it stick up, man. The bigger the cape, the badder the man. Yep, good. That's better. And of course, it's falling behind him and it's on the sofa. So it's going to drop down. There it is going over here. It's going to go behind him. That's his cape. Then it's behind him here. And it's falling off the seat. So you can imagine it might drop down about here. And let's say it's quite a long cape. Maybe it comes down to about here. Yep. And maybe it falls outside here. And to really make it look bad. We make it almost as deep. We don't want a tangent. A tangent is when something touches another line and it becomes uncomfortable. Right, let's say, for example, if this cape comes all the way down here, and we can, here's with a seat. The computer stalling. That's with a seat. Will affect the cape. Good. And the cape, remember I mentioned that I kind of stole a bit of Doctor Strange, right? His cape at the bottom here. There, and has a pattern. The pattern. It's just basically squiggling. Now we're not really fully rendering this, so I'm just putting a marker there to show you what I mean. Yeah. And it's a bit that goes down the outside as well. There, good. It's a bit at the top end here. And it goes off down here. So it's at the edge of the cape. Good. We're getting there. We're getting there. So let's look at the face. Now he's got like a metal thing around his neck. So I'm going to thicken, put it around the neck, and you give it a thickness. Okay, let's reaffirm the hair. Let's reaffirm the hair. And he even has a pentagram on his forehead. And that comes in when we go to the face next. So let's zoom in on the face. And as I mentioned before, he doesn't actually have any eyebrows, but he does have what I suppose you could call, so not eyebrows, he doesn't have any eyeballs. You know, those classic all white inner eyes. And as such, he doesn't have any eyebrows, but he has a pattern that goes up and down. Actually, now that I look at this looks a bit like Lobo. God damn. And here, he has a pentagram on his forehead. There. And he's not a very happy camper. Right. In the bottom lip. And he has a mustache. Quite neat. Quite neat. Remember, we draw through the object. The mustache must sit on the chin that is underneath. And let's give him strong cheekbones. Good. Okay, so we've pretty much got our character drawn. And the last thing, okay, this is called Auspicious August, right? And what makes him auspicious is he also has a large collar. Yeah, and his collar comes up. Again, I think I'm guilty of being influenced by Doctor Strange. Funny, I was pretty much a very big Marvel Comics collector when I was very young. And I went through a phase of almost all characters being my favorite character for a period of months. I remember it clearly. I remember reading nothing but Doctor Strange comics for a long time. There was an Iron Man period I went through as a kid. There was a Daredevil period, Spider-Man, Captain America. And I only got into DC Comics during the very early 80s. Very, very early 80s. I went over to DC for a while. And it's a comic called The Legion of Superheroes. Oh man. If DC had a soul, they would know how to make that into a movie. But that would take a level of understanding that I don't think they have. Now I'm being a real fanboy now. I'm making up that I would know how to make the movie. It's funny when you go to the cinema and all the fanboys come out afterwards and they're criticizing. You know, what we would do if we were the director, what we would have done differently. All that kind of good stuff. Oh, God. There's one film that I definitely thought was extraordinary. Was a Captain America, First Avenger. The way they put in the old bits of Cap into that story, I thought was phenomenal. Very well done, I thought. Okay, we've done our detail, so let's switch off our construction to see what it looks like. So the dimensions of contours, centerline, fundamental fleshing out, and of course the skeleton. There's our guy. And let's just drop in a bit more anatomy, shall we? So we've got a bicep coming up here. Yeah, bicep. Center parting. Fundamentals of the hair. So what we can actually do now is I'm going to render the chair behind him DT chair. So it's going to be on a separate layer. Now, of course, it's totally up to you if you want to make, it could be a massive golden throne, loads of decoration. You know, the sky's the limit. Basically, what you've got is the guy sat on the chair, and this exercise is partly how to do that. You draw the chair first, then you put the character in the chair. I know I have my comic that I think I mentioned earlier, SupaCross. Well, it's a supergroup kind of comic, which means there's a lot of characters. And a major part of drawing that comic, in fact, is planning where everyone is standing. And quite often, you draw, if they stood in the room, you actually draw the room first. It does make life easier. But of course, the natural way that we all work is we draw the characters first and then put the background in after. That's actually, well, if you can do it and it works, there's nothing wrong with doing it. But it is actually a little bit more difficult if you draw the characters first. Okay. So now I've reaffirmed the chair. So let's switch off our chair sketch. There's a chair skeleton and the chair fleshing out. Okay, so there's our guy sat in the chair. And what I'm going to do is we can do a little bit of inking, and that should take us up to the end of the show. As I mentioned, I'm not actually here. I'm in a different dimension called the UK. Yeah. So if you're following along at home, let's quickly. Well, you know what? No, let's not ink it. Should we do some? Let's do some pencil sketch rendering. Yeah, we did inking last time. So I'm going to put here rendering. And well, this might be a little bit faster. And I've got 2 episodes to record. Back to back, man. And the brother's tired. No, but I don't have to be here for 2 hours. But let's try a little bit of hatching, a bit of shading, so to speak. That should be interesting. Wait a second. I'm getting confused with my layers here. That's better. No, this is embarrassing. I can't remember my own character's costume. What the? I might have to open my comic book to have another look at its costume. Okay, no need to be so pedantic, Jerome Hinds. Right, we can do something here. Even if it's not the same as it was in the comic, who cares? Who cares? We're having fun. Right, so let's just do some rendering here, yeah? So let's say, for example, if the light source is coming from here, upper right light source. Yeah? Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. So let's just put in a bit more from the cape here. Let's put in some contours. And details of the chair underneath. Let's just change the name, kind of that. And rendering. Okay, so the light source is coming from the upper right. So let's start rendering a bit of here. So over here, I won't have too much shading because the light source is coming from up there. You might get a bit on the inside here, but we leave here, out here quite sparse. But then over here, we be sure to put in a bit more shading. And it's coming from the upper right. So it will catch the inside of the center parting. But it's not going to catch down here. Yeah. And the technique I'm using is what I call left, right, or up, down. In my book, I have some notes on this technique. Now here's an interesting thing. His beard is black. Okay. So as a penciler, you don't, strictly speaking, have to take all of what I'm going to say on board. Because an inker is there for this reason. But I'm going to put a shadow under his chin. But with a beard, that could cause a problem, right? So you've got to find a way of making it pop. face. So I put an accent around the beard. Now his neck, the thing around his neck is actually metallic. I'm going to put most of it in the darkness. If the light source is upper right, there's not going to be a lot of light coming in here. And recently, I've been doing a lot of inking of the pencils of a genius named Gene Colan. And that man was quite brutal with his shadows. Genius of shadows. And now Rodin's costume is actually quite dark. So here, remember, light source is upper right. Now, I'm quite an old school artist, right? So I appreciate hatching. I like this kind of stuff. But in truth, if you look at quite a lot of modern comics, Western comics, this discipline is kind of gone. What they do is a lot of the shading is done by the coloring. The coloring does all of the light and dark. But I'm a Silver Age. I'm a Bronze Age kind of brother. So the bracelet is kind of metallic. And again, the light source is upper right. Metallic gauntlet. Good. Of course, there's going to be a shadow under the armpits. All of this in darkness. As I said, he's got quite a dark costume. So I'm going to pull out his abs. I'm going to put an accent. What I just mentioned before about making the moustache and the beard pop if there's a shadow behind it. On the outer body, like with a cape here, for example, the body is going to throw a shadow behind him. So you put an accent on the edge of the body. There. There. Again here. Shadow being thrown onto the cape. Not a shadow in here on the cape. Upper right, so in here, catching the light. Catching the light. Back here, not so much. Of course, we let him throw a shadow onto the chair. One of my favorite artists of all time, the gentleman by the name of Gil Kane. Sorry, he is my favorite comic artist of all time. I was reading an article by him once. And when he first started out in comics, he used to work with a light source. And you look back at some of his old drawing. And yeah, I mean, fundamentally just fantastic drawing. But yeah, no light source. I would say flat, but there's just there's no significant spotting. No, spotting is large areas of black. You look at his old comics, and absolutely extraordinary artist. Yeah, man. He wasn't working with the light source. Amazing. So they're under the cape. The cape is going to throw a shadow onto his chest. And maybe from over here, that light catches some of his chest. We put an accent on that pec, on that chest muscle. There, again, another accent on the outside of the body. Now I've been a bit naughty here. When you're rendering, always keep your pencil in one direction. It just looks more professional when that happens. So here we are, remember? Light source, upper right. And see, I'm doing different kinds of rendering here. Yeah, because in my book, I address something that I call the image kind of discipline, which is gradation hatching. This is in, this hand is, the light sources come from above, but the body's in the way here. Yeah, old school comics or older comics used to have what you call, what I call spikes. Right, we've explored it a bit on this stream before. I'll show you what I mean here. Like here, in the good old days, people might hatch and go out into the darkness here. Whereas image, they started going more horizontal, out of the black. And well, I have to say, I did see the great artist John Byrne back in the very early, very late 1970s. He was doing something like that. But it became a lot more mainstream with image. Yeah. Now I'm going full Gene Colan. Gene Colan, the legendary artist, he was unique in that he didn't used to kind of like hatch in the traditional sense. He used to do things like what I'm doing here, or use the flat of the pencil, so grayscale. So when the inker came in to work on what he'd done, a lot of it was left up to interpretation more. And of course, I mean, those inkers that Marvel and DC were working with, they knew their stuff. It wasn't too much of a problem for them. But if you gave Gene Colan to a very inexperienced inker, that inker would have struggled. For sure. Okay, now here. There, put an accent. Now here, I'm going to put this all in blackness. course, I do like to ink my work quite often, but sometimes as well, there's something about leaving something in just a pencil that I often like as well. And I can be accused of being a neat freak sometimes. And sticking on the Gene Colan subject, so I joined a Gene Colan Appreciation Society and started inking some of his pencils and sending it in for critique. And I prefer a style of inking that is very tight. But I soon discovered in that chat group that when I ink with a degree of what I call organic, which is much more rough-edged inking, and not as neat and tidy as what I call a controlled inking, when the guys inside that group see it's actually a mixture of the controlled and less controlled inking, they tend to like it more. And you know, comic art is actually commercial art, but it's so unique. I said here on the show before, it's so unique that it's kind of trapped between both worlds. And that's why it's so difficult you know, to please everyone, because it has, comic art kind of has all the sensitivities of fine art, but it's dependent on commercial disciplines, which is a problem. Right, our light source is coming from top right. So yeah, you can see that it's building up now to look like if the light source is coming from that direction. Right, so let's continue with this leg. How are we doing for time? 20 minutes. Yeah, we should be okay. So this leg is going away from the action, from the light. Put the hatching coming up here. This part here is actually, this part over here is in the dark. But this leg, this outstretched leg here, it's going to catch the light. Most certainly it will. In fact, did you know you can draw something quite badly? But if you can keep your light sourcing quite disciplined, your drawing will look better. There's those divisions that we did earlier. Put an accent on them like that. Good. And put a shadow here. Yeah. Now here's body. I'm going to cast a shadow on the seat here. So I'll leave a few wrinkles exposed. So look. And there's a classic part of the thing I described just now, the image gradation. Gradation hatching. Look at me, inking all different directions. What an absolute disgrace. After lecturing my students about being so slovenly in doing that. God damn. Yeah, the lower foot. And going around the back here, just going to come into the light. Here, bit of darkness, and come into the light. Good. Put some accents in the divisions. To the sole of the foot. So here, the shadow of that leg is going to fall on the cape. There. There. I'll tell you what, that Gene Collins affected me, you know. Definitely he has affected me. I can see it now. Now this leg is going away from us. So the shadow is going to extend away from here. So folding the cloth, it's going to come into the light. Wait a second. And when I'm inking, I often keep my rendering layer separate as well. Okay, good. Cape here. Again, the light source is coming from the upper right. So you've got to be sure that we take that into account. And never forget. Never forget. Okay, this under this arm is going away from the light. I'm going to put this armrest here in total darkness. And Roldan actually wears black gloves. I'm going to put an accent down the outside and the knuckles. But it's pretty much picking up a lot of the light because of the position of where it is. Okay, and similar to above, but this is behind the cape. So I'm going to put an accent on the edge of the chair. But again, I'm going to put this all in darkness. How are we doing? Oh, still got 15 minutes. So we should wrap this up plenty in time. Give me a chance to play some trailers. I'll be playing a trailer for Guys with Powers. That's another comic published by Thunderzone Comics, where my SupaCross goes out with. And it's a Kickstarter of the new comic. Brilliant title. And there's a catch up here. So you can get all of the back issues of my SupaCross if you want, which is always nice to see when some sales come through. So I'm going to play a trailer for that. And we actually had a launch party here of Madness Entertainment Group for both the launch and the closing of the campaign. But there's what's called late pledges. I think it's still open. I have to check that, but assume that you can still get in a late pledge. I think you can. And of course, if you do, I will most greatly appreciate that. Okay, this hand is going to drop a shadow a bit. And I'm just going to do a bit of gradation. Yep, that Gene Collins affected me. He really has. So I'm going to come out here. Put a bit of shadow behind here. Yeah. Now I'm complaining about me hatching in different directions, but you can do it if there's a certain amount of discipline to it. And I'll put the shadow. Chair. The light is creeping underneath slightly. Remember, we've got a tilted axis, yeah? So we try to maintain that with this render. Okay, I think that pretty much does it for Rodan. Putting the character sitting in a chair. That's the main thing that we're aiming to do today. And I did a time lapse, so I'm going to export that. Export time lapse. So this is nice to have a quick recap. There, we started with the chair. There's the chair building up. Can I make this bigger? I've never tried to do that before. Okay, let's big it gets. Okay, there we go. There's the chair going in, reshaping the chair. Keep those pencils light. There, so you can change things. And then our skeleton. Good, so we drew the chair first and we put the man in the chair after. So there goes our skeleton. Now we come to the fundamental fleshing out. Put the basic shape and the limbs in. I can hurry this along slightly. So there you can see all. At this point, we earmark the face. Then we start to render. We put in the center lines, all the contours, found the front, back, and sides of the objects. Then we can actually apply the costume and the main contours of detail. In fact, this is, and from this, anyone could ink from here. Right, so there we are. That's done. And then we started rendering. Putting in all the blacks. Where our light source is coming from. So let me make it bigger. Is that the biggest? God dang. Yep, that's the biggest. There, our light source is going in. Whoops. There, done. So, okay, I'm going to save. is exporting. Good. So let's have a look at a couple of trailers. Here's Guys with Powers. Please go over and make a late pledge. And I would also appreciate greatly if you look into the catch-up tier of my SupaCross issues 1 to 5, which are available, and other great titles from Thunder Zone Comics as well. But here's the trailer for Guys with Powers.
New York's been quiet, too quiet. But when smoke rises, Cosmos brings the fire. GWP, yeah, we rise from the block. Guys with powers on the move, time to put smoke on lock. He running drugs, running guns, think he can't be stopped. We the mega hero squad and we taking that shot. GWP, yeah, the city gon' see. When Cosmos calls the play, that's a whole new league. New York in the business, but we fight as a team. Guys with powers, baby, welcome to the regime. Cosmos in the sky, that's hell on the league. Cosmic energy crackling like a star going free. He the brain, he the plan, he the calm in the heat. When the city's on the line, he the one you wanna meet. Jazz, take the sellers, yeah, she burning like a nova. Radioactive girl turn the block into a supernova. She flying through the night with that isotope glow. If you dealing in the shadows, she gon' let that fire flow. Low phase in the cut, tears shifting through the planes. Multi-dimensional mind, chaos energy in his veins. Weapons disappear, nah, they ain't coming back. He drop them in the void like a one-way track. The Manico on the bias, yeah, he built like a tank. Skin tough like amber strength, heavy like a bank. You can shoot, you can swing, you can pray, you can run. But he's standing in the doorway like I'm not the one. Then the twins hit the scene, Trey and Shamika. Turbo twins moving fast like a double feature. 5 feet apart, nah, that's when they lose it. But side by side, they unstoppable bruisers. Flip kick combo, 2-person flow. Second gen heroes with a legacy to show. Buyers, sellers, villains, everybody getting checked. When the walkers hit the block, that's respect. Yeah, we rise from the block. Guys with powers on the move, time to put smoke on like he running drugs, running guns, think he can't be stopped. But we the mega hero squad and we taking that shot. GW, yeah, the city gon' see. When Cosmos calls the play, that's a whole new league. New York in the business, but we fight as a team. Guys with powers, baby, welcome to the regime.
Indeed, Danny Seton, the publisher from Thunder Zone Comics, he wrote the lyrics to that track and he gave it to me, and with some AI. And I used to play a lot of music back in the day. It was great putting together the music track for it. I'm a would-be musician. Would-be. I still play in a band now, actually, with the family at some comedy gigs that we promote. And yeah, playing music is great. Almost as good as drawing comic books. But yeah, that pretty much is a wrap for this week. Auspicious August, everyone that we're drawing this month is either someone like a kingpin, royalty, a god, but someone that's larger than life. And I'm going to be back in the next episode. We'll be drawing someone called the Mistress. The Mistress is a lady character of mine. She rules Dimension Z. Again, another nasty bit of work. Quite a rough lady and interesting character. She's an outsized lady, but you'll see. That's gonna be on the next episode. We'll be drawing Mistress. Meanwhile, I'm gonna run the look at that. I'm actually saving. I'm saving this in the right place. There we are. My etiquette. Because, I'm always saying here, right? What does I always say?
Save!
Yep, I just saved that time lapse. So yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Again, I'm not really here. I'm actually in UK. So if time permitting, I'm going to record the next episode right now. But thanks for tuning in. Peace.
you missed the live viewing of any Meg production, you can find all our content on Roku, or as a member of this channel